Hello YouTube, Liam, the Deaf Doom Metalhead, and I'm doing a video that I've wanted to do for quite a long time and I've never got around to doing it. So this video is purely my 10 out of 10 album, so an album I cannot fault, love to death, and I wholly recommend that you guys check them out. So I've picked quite a few that, you know, to me personally are flawless. They do everything I want musically, and I repeat listen to all these albums, you know, now and again. Obviously I'll leave them alone for a little while, otherwise I'll lose their charm, but 9 times out of 10, if I'm in a spot where I want to listen to an album that I know I like, one of these will normally be the ones I pick. So all these are 10 out of 10s for me, flawless albums, and I can't recommend them highly enough. So we'll kick off with my favourite from last year, my #1 album from last year, and that is Tyrant with Hereafter. Like I said, came out last year and completely surprised me. Never heard of the band before I checked this out, but the only reason I did is purely based off Robert Lowe being on the vocals. Now Robert Lowe, singer of Solitude Aeturnus, Candlelight, big influence on me. You know, been with my obsession with Doom since I was in my teens when I first heard Solitude Aeturnus, and then obviously Candlelight. You know, it was a no-brainer that I was going to go check this out, and I was really not disappointed. Band's been around since like the early 80s. And I believe the only original member left is Greg May, who I speak to now and again on Facebook, top bloke. You know, you've got Rocky Rockwell there, an amazing guitar, you know, riff writer, and then obviously Robert Lowe there. But yeah, this album completely surprised me last year. Bags of riffs, absolutely loads of them. I mean, the whole album is just flawless for me. I've listened to this so much, and I still do. If I'm going to walk the dog, I'll crank this on. If I'm sat in here, you know, looking for a record to listen to, I normally reach for this, just because I know the words to it, I know the riffs, can put this on, you know, and just really enjoy it. So if you haven't checked out Tyrant's Hereafter, I strongly recommend you do. This came out through Shadow Kingdom Records, and you know, it's an absolute solid album. You know, all their albums are really solid, but this one for me was a really nice surprise. So that's Tyrant Hereafter. Next one is an amazing Deaf Doom band from, I think they're from Michigan in America. They put out an album last year that was brilliant, but this one came out in 2017. I believe also through Shadow Kingdom Records. There's 2 from Shadow Kingdom Records, and that is Temple of Void with Lords of Death, my favourite of their albums. This is flawless for me. I mean, the cover art is the first thing that drew me in. The band name is really cool. The genre is obviously something I absolutely love. But Wretched Banquet, that song, track 2, it's just got such a fucking good riff. It's so heavy. And then the rest of the album kind of builds. There's like some progressive elements in there. There's clean vocals in there. There's so much going on to keep it interesting, and it's just a solid album. These guys have got stronger and stronger from each release. You know, if you combine like Morbid Angel with Doom, you know, you kind of get something like Temple of Void. But yeah, an absolutely amazing band and an absolutely flawless album for me. So Temple of Void, Lords of Death. Now the third one here is another Robert Lowe one. So like I said, I'm a massive Solitude Aeturnus fan, and I could pick any of their albums really, but I went with this one because no one normally talks about it, and that is Downfall. Now the original one came out in '96. This is obviously a repress with different artwork, so if you're looking for the CD copy, because it was never repressed with the original artwork, you'll only ever find it looking like this on vinyl. But the CD looks completely different, but this came out, like I say, in '96. I mean, there's nothing going on in there to show you. That's remotely interesting. But what I really like about this one, it's very heavy, very dark. It's just very catchy songs on this one. There's a lot more emphasis on the doom than the shreddier stuff from the earlier albums. I mean, if you check out tracks like Together and Wither, Midnight Dreams, there's even a Christian Death cover, Death Wish, if you know that band. So another solid album, a solid band really. I mean, all their albums are solid to me, but this one no one ever really talks about, so go check out some Solitude Aeturnus and Downfall. Next one, this came out in, let's have a look, did I write it down? Yes, 1993. English Deaf Doom, one of the pioneers of that style. And I mean, there's so many albums I could have picked from these guys, but I picked with this one just because, you know, it's a classic. And that is My Dying Bride's Turn Loose to Swans. Massively influential band for me. Been a fan of theirs since, again, like in my teens when I first ever heard them. Discovered them in the most lame way possible. I broke up with my girlfriend at the time. I was feeling really down, and I wanted to find a band that fitted my mood on my iPod. And at the time, My Dying Bride, I just newly put it on there, never listened to them before. And the whole bus journey home, I was crying my eyes out listening to My Dying Bride, as lame as that is. But, you know, they're stuck with me ever since, and every album of theirs is influential to me. But this one's a 10 out of 10. Just a classic album. You know, the track for me that really, you know, the icing on the cake is The Crown of Sympathy. It's just got everything I love about My Dying Bride going on in that. Clean vocals, heavy riffs, brilliant harmonies. You cannot go wrong. This is again another different cover. I believe this might have even been the original album artwork. I'm not 100% sure. But if you're looking for Turn Loose the Swans, it will look slightly different to this if you're buying it on CD. So that's that. Next one, moving away from the doom into more traditional kind of metal, but with a very unique vocalist. When I first ever heard this, I thought it was ridiculous, but the more and more I listened to it, the more I really got into him, and the guitar work is flawless, and that is King Diamond with them. This originally came out in 1988. This is obviously a reissue. Just such a classic band for me. It's totally unique, so I knew exactly what I was getting into. When I heard King Diamond's vocals, I thought there's no one else that sounds like him. And Andy LaRocque's riffing and soloing it's just phenomenal. There's the band on the back. You even got Mickey D, who's the drummer for Motorhead. I was a massive Motorhead fan at the time when I first heard this as well, so that really intrigued me. And it's just such a good album. And my favourite track is Bye Bye Missy. That riff on there is solid, just kicks in straight away. And away you go. And I originally downloaded this, I think, through LimeWire when I was a teenager, just the track Bye Bye Missy, and someone obviously had modified it because it was incredibly loud. So when I burnt it to CD, it was the loudest track by far out of all of them. I always had to turn my Walkman down. But it really stuck with me, and years later, obviously, I purchased the album after streaming it for donkey's years. So if you're new to King Diamond, which I'd be very surprised if anyone is, this is totally worth your time, as well as Conspiracy. That's another brilliant one. Abigail. They're all brilliant. The latter one's a bit iffy, but the early King Diamond albums especially are all flawless to me. So that's a 10 out of 10 there. Now this one was probably my first ever death metal album I properly really got into. I first ever heard was Cannibal Corpse, and I kind of thought they were silly. But then I heard this, and it kind of changed my opinion completely. And that is Morbid Angel's Domination. Came out in 1995. The artwork, yeah, is a bit shit. There's no denying that. I have the CD version, which is, way better than this. But this album had everything I loved. It was really slow and stompy, but then it was death metal-y. Dave Vincent's vocals are really clear, so you can hear all the words. And at the time, kind of coming away from thrash and going into death metal, this was a really easy gateway album for me. And because by then I didn't really know I liked doom, it kind of struck a chord with me, because like Where the Slime Live is just slow, stompy, really heavy. I love double bass, so when you hear that on this especially, it's just killer. I mean, everyone goes for Altar of Madness, which I like, but it's a bit too thrashy for me. It's not my go-to Morbid Angel album. It'll always be this one. Blessed of the Sick as well is another favourite of mine. And then the Gateways to Annihilation if I fancy some Steve Tucker kind of vocals. But a solid 10 out of 10 for me, this one. So many great riffs on here. Caesar's Palace, Where the Slime Lives, Dominate. Even the really doomy one, Hate Work, I really like that as well. So yeah, solid album there. Now this one is a very, I suppose you could categorise it as epic doom. These guys are German, and they put out one album. They've only ever done one album. Came out in 2019. Completely different to what normal epic doom is, where you've got the kind of swords and shields or the epicness of someone dying. This has a more of a dark undertone to it, and that is the band Fvneral Fvkk with Carnal Confessions. What really surprised me about how dark it was the lyrical content, because when I first heard it I wasn't really sure what I was listening to, and when you research into it, it's obviously all about the Catholic Church, what happened behind closed doors. That's obviously been documented, and there's accusations which they've got to be true, haven't they? But it's just amazed me how well they capture all the emotions of it, because obviously the songs are based off from the child's point of view, from the woman's point of view, and this song about a priest harvesting children with leeches to kind of heal his illness with their blood. All sorts of crazy topics like that. And then the book inside is like a hymn book that kind of explains it all a little bit more with pictures, and you can sing along to it. It's just really well written, really great vocals. Simon's vocals on this are amazing. And I have the 7-inch as well they put out, which is just also really good. 2 tracks off that are brilliant. And a band I kind of hope in the future they do more music, because I think they're members of Office and other kind of side projects from, I think, Hamburg, I believe they're based. I just heard this and it's stuck with me ever since. I had this on the car the other day, just kind of playing it through Spotify again and again and again, just because it's so catchy. So if you never checked this one out before, I can't highly recommend this enough. This is a 10 out of 10 album all day long for me. And if they had one of those kind of desert island things where you have to kind of pick 5 albums, this would be in my top 5 hands down. So that's Fvneral Fvkk, Carnal Confessions. Another 2020 release came out last year that kind of shocked me at how good it was. A Death Doom band, but they're not that traditional Death Doom sound. These guys have kind of broadened it a bit and made it more melodic, put in some kind of synthy keyboard kind of stuff to kind of break up the album as well. And I think I put this was in my top 3 last year. Fires in the Distance, Echoes from Deep November. The album cover caught me straight away when this was recommended to me by a friend of mine, and then I listened to it and he was like, fuck yeah, I'm all in, all in. Thick, crunchy 7-string guitars, modern production sound, really thick, really heavy, but the melodies on it is what sells it for me, and it's just so different to your other Death Doom bands. Everyone's kind of going for that cavernous, guttural sound, which I love, but these guys stand out completely. It's doomy, it's death metal, but it has a modern approach to it. The production is massive, and there's no other album that sounds like this to me at all. This band sounds totally unique. When you hear them, you know it's them straight away. And even listening to the kind of new stuff they put on their Instagram page the other day, it's in the same sort of style, which I'm really happy about. So yeah, Fires in the Distance, if you've never checked this one out, it's a solid, solid album. Next one is probably one of my favourite death metal bands ever. Obviously Morbid Angel, one of the first ones I really, really liked. And there's like Suffocation's another one. But this band, I mean, they're no longer together. They only put out, I think, 6 albums. 2 of them, style-wise, are very different from the early stuff. But this is Gorefest with False. Came out in '92. I think through Nuclear Blast originally. But this band and this album especially, it's just amazing. So vocally, totally unique. You're not going to find another death metal band before these guys that sound the way they do. Riffing wise, you could easily compare it to obviously 90s death metal, but there's kind of that dual kind of guitar melodies, very Thin Lizzy-esque almost. And as obviously latter albums went on, they obviously went in that direction more and more and more. But this is a Dutch band that it's just amazing. I mean, they're so heavy. And this, I mean, all their albums to me are 10 out of 10s. Even the kind of hard rock ones I still enjoy a lot. They're very different, but False kind of captures all those really heavy riffs. I mean, Mind Lost before that was very primitive, very brutal, whereas this had a bit more of a cleaner production, so you can make out the riffs a bit better, and the vocals were less guttural, and then he starts singing a bit more, so he's growling, but you can hear every single word he's saying, and you can then start singing along to the tracks. This is a Repress through Back on Black. But yeah, a 10 out of 10 album, and pretty much all their albums to me are 10 out of 10. So if you're looking to get into death metal, give these guys a go. I mean, the vocals will put a lot of people off, but I've always enjoyed them, and I've never had a problem with them. I can see why people find it different to other death metal vocalists because it's not the traditional style. But what makes a band unique and makes people remember them is the uniqueness, and this has bags of it. So Gorefest. And then another death metal band, this one's from Canada, and it's stuck with me for years since I first heard it. It doesn't sound like anyone else to me either. This band stand out just for the sheer brutality of the style, the drumming phenomenal, the riffing really complicated, and the vocals, you wouldn't have a fucking clue what he's saying. And that is Cryptopsy with None So Vile. This originally came out in 1996, and like I say, the vocals, Lord Worm's vocals, no chance of figuring out what he's saying. Just proper guttural, proper primitive sounding. But what made me love this album so much and made it a 10 out of 10 was just the riffing. The riffing is so solid. Every solo is memorable, and it's just crazy. The drumming is so technical, like Flo's drumming. I've seen him live with this band, and they are phenomenal live. That's the back of this is a Hammerheart reissue. But you know, you got stuff like what's my favourite? Graves of the Fathers, Phobafar, which has got that really memorable tremolo picked riff that, you know, I seem to always jam when I'm rehearsing on the guitar. Artwork is instantly memorable. I have this on a t-shirt as well. It's just an all-round great album. Their first album was really good, but for me, out of all their albums, Cryptopsy have never done anything better than this. So in the comments below, you know, let me know if you agree with that or not. But for me, this is their best ever album they've ever done. Seen them play this live, this album. Yeah, an amazing band. So None So Vile, Cryptopsy. And last but not least, an amazing album for me. One I'll always recommend, and another one of my top 5 desert island albums if I was ever to have to choose. This album would be right up there. And that is Daylight Dies with Dismantling Devotion. Came out in 2006 through Candlelight. This is amazing. Just absolutely amazing album. Melodic, doom, death. But it has everything, but it's not done in that kind of brutal, primitive way. This is more mature, more grand. It just has everything. The melodies are amazing. Everything about this album just makes you remember it. And it's just an instant classic for me, and I dare anyone to argue with me that they did a better album than this one, because they really haven't. All their albums are brilliant. I love Dismantling, Daylight Dies, sorry, but this album for me is their best songwriting. I mean, the title track is just an instrumental. It's so fucking good. You can chill out to that, put it on. The guitar work is just fantastic. What's another really good one? Solitary Refinement, that's a really good one. The clean vocals, you know, they do everything. Singing, growling, everything is flawless. Just kind of getting involved there with some pictures of the band, but you know, I've seen these guys live. I was lucky to be in the same festival as them as well and kind of chat to them, and they're just as good live as they were on album as well, which is really cool to see, because some bands are just awful live. But yeah, an absolutely flawless band, and just so much going on musically. Very much worth your time. Not growly death metal which will put people off. Give this one a chance, and you'll be very surprised. So that's a 10 out of 10 for me. So yeah, quick little video really, just kind of showing you some 10 out of 10 albums that I personally wish people will check out if you haven't already. You know, they're all classics to me, and you know, if you really enjoyed them, obviously let me know below if you do check them out. Also a reminder, I'll put a link above my head now for my competition video that's ending this Friday the 19th, so get your entries in if you wish to win the prizes mentioned in the video. Thank you to everyone who's also done a video so far. They've been fucking hilarious, especially some of the jokes have been really bad, which have actually made me laugh more. And some of those ideas people have given to change my channel are brilliant, so funny. So I'll do a kind of a special video if I can edit it properly to kind of maybe include those ideas in my video if I can get around to it. So yeah, check it out if you haven't already, and please subscribe and like this video if you enjoy the content on my channel. Thank you to all my new subscribers as well. Recently that's kind of jumped up by nearly 50. Always grateful for people that watch my videos. I'll always say thank you, and I'll always reply to everyone's comments who take the time to even watch me ramble on about stuff. So check those albums out if you haven't, and I'll speak to you guys soon. Take care.